morning. Good morning. Once again, you are a very lively bunch of people, and I am grateful for that. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. Our mission is to be a welcoming congregation seeking intellectual and spiritual growth, and we strive to do so in a larger and create a larger community of peace, justice, and love. Welcome. There's a lot going on during this particular time this morning. I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of things. First of all, you notice that there is a Sunday news in your order of service. This is just a reformatting of the usual list of things that's in your order of service, but we are taking baby steps in creating a sort of a more streamlined approach to communications. The Sunday news is really a condensed version of the weekly news that goes out on Friday afternoons. It has some additions if something came in late. But it also doesn't include some things that are just passed, like, for instance, the wonderful jazz concert that was held here last night. It was a great event, a good number of people. It's sponsored for the congregation, a fundraising for the congregation. But I'd like to draw your attention to a few specific items in the Sunday news. First of all, next Sunday, the 14th, there's a special holiday concert right here at 5:30 p.m. with Tropical Storm and special guest Steve Espinosa. This is a fundraiser for our contributions to the Immokalee Housing and Family Services. Thank you very much. I got that drilled last night and I didn't remember it. This is important because this year we are not having our regular auction, and so there are multiple events that we're having to offset that large amount of money that comes in for the auction. And so it's important for you to understand that this event next Sunday is for that charity that we have given to so generously over the past few years. So this is one event this year, the first event in our fundraising efforts. I wanted to point that out to you. Just after that, you'll notice that the Vesper service that I was going to offer on this coming Wednesday, the 10th, when the holidays hurt, will be held a week later on the 17th due to a little scheduling snafu, which is really shorthand for saying I didn't get it on the calendar in time before somebody else jumped in. You'll notice that there's a home, just above the Tropical Storm, there's a home-hosted bidding event coming up, and something today, a preview tour today of Tomatoes and Gazpacho. Does that sound great? Presented by Mish Batty and David Bosworth. That's going to be on December 17th, but today we'll be bidding for that event on the patio, so right outside those doors. This is for 15 lucky people, and it is to generate excitement for the home-hosted events that will take place in January. Just a quick announcement that there were a number of items left at First Friday at the Griffiths House on Friday. So if you left something there, or if you think you might have, or if you don't know and maybe you want to find out if there's something that's yours, it's in the kitchen near the sink. So look for that. But also, please read everything here because there's a lot of good stuff happening. And thank you for your attention. I'd invite you now to turn off any cell phone or other devices you might have that could interrupt the service. We wouldn't want that, would we? And I urge you to center yourselves and enter into the spirit of worship as we have this morning's prelude. This moment is beautiful, for we have gathered. For we have gathered in common purpose to do important work. To do important work that only we can do. This moment is beautiful, for together we recreate the world. Let us join in body or spirit and rise and sing, "What Gift Can We Bring?" Hymn number 404 in the gray hymnal. Each morning we hold out the chalice of our being to be filled with the graces of life that abound. Air to breathe, food to eat, companions to love, beauty to behold, art to cherish, causes to serve. We carry the chalice with us as we go, either meandering aimlessly or with destination in our eye. We share its abundance, if we have any sense, reminding others as we remind ourselves of the contents of the chalice we don't deserve. Water from living streams fills it, if we only hold it out faithfully. We give back, if we can, something of ourselves, some love, some beauty, some grace, some gift. We give back in gratitude, if we can, something that is poured into the chalice of our being for those who abide with us and follow. Please join me in the chalice lighting response in your order of service. Each morning, you'll notice that there are no children with us this morning, and yet here I am walking forward with a microphone. Our time for children is something that we've been talking about in staff a lot lately. We try to offer this time not just for our children, but for you, a time when they can feel part of this congregation. They can have a worshipful space, inclusive of all of us who are here. And yet sometimes that doesn't always work. Sometimes we as a congregation, and even perhaps me as a service leader, respond to the children in ways that aren't necessarily as welcoming as we could. So I wanted to bring up the fact to you that we are talking about this, that we do hope that we can offer our children a safe place in the sanctuary, a safe, worshipful space in the sanctuary, so they can come, they can experience worship with you, see you here in worship mode, so to speak, and understand what that means. So we're talking about how to do that in staff, and some of the things we're going to try to do is not to create such a fishbowl effect up here in the front, possibly by not engaging them as much in conversation, but sort of allowing them to sit and contemplate in worship as we tell a story or share an idea. I don't know if you remember, but back in April when I visited you, I told the story of being a part of a community. And I told the story of when I was a young person walking into the side door of my church growing up, and a booming voice calling out to me, "Brother Fisher, welcome. So glad you're here." And I'm 10 years old, and I'm thinking, what's going on? But this voice continued and invited me. "We would love to have your help setting up chairs in Community Hall for our function after the service today. Come, join us." Well, first of all, somebody knew my name. Somebody invited me into an activity that people were doing intergenerationally, multi-generationally. And that's the kind of atmosphere I hope that we can generate here, where you learn the names of these children that are so important to the future of this congregation, and where we all grow together in learning different ways of engaging the Spirit. That's this morning's message for all ages. I'm grateful for your attention. And I needed to keep this in my hand as we enter into a time of joys and sorrows. Joys and sorrows are a time we have an opportunity to share with each other what's in our heart every week. For all that's been shared, for our deep losses, Harleen, for birthdays, for joys, for our deep sorrows, and for all those things that we carry in our hearts and don't express all the time. Please know that our thoughts and hearts are with you, and this is a place where you can sit in solidarity. We're grateful for your presence. Let's remain seated and sing together Spirit of Life as we enter into a time of meditation. Spirit of life, here in this sanctuary, which has been the home for so many secret thoughts and hopes, fears and desires, may we feel free to look at ourselves with true honesty. And may we come to discover that there are resources within ourselves and beyond us that are as hidden but as real as our secret doubts and fears. New dimensions of the Spirit, within and without, will be revealed to us as we confront ourselves honestly and come to understand that we are not isolated from the community of life and spirit, but that our struggles connect us with the hidden struggles of others. May we come to see that in our deepest loneliness we are not alone. And may we be emboldened by this vision to reach out to others in their need, and so finally to discover that to give is not only more blessed than to receive, but that to give to others is to receive what we most need for ourselves. Let's join in a time of silence. Our responsive reading this morning is number 654, Impassioned Clay. Deep in ourselves resides the religious impulse. We have religion when we stop deluding ourselves that we are self-sufficient, self-sustaining, or self-derived.
We have religion when we hold some hope beyond the present, some self-respect beyond our failures.
We have religion when our hearts are capable of leaping up at beauty, when our nerves are edged by some dream in the heart.
We have religion when we have an abiding gratitude for all that we have received.
We have religion when we look upon people with all their failings and still find in them good. When we look beyond people to the grandeur in nature and to the purpose in our own heart.
We have religion when we have done all that we can, and then in confidence trust ourselves to the life that is larger than ourselves.
This morning's sermon is about generosity, so I don't have a lot to say when it comes to this morning's offering. Just that your contributions to the ongoing mission of this church will be gratefully received. Thank you. The reading this morning is from Loving Kindness by Sharon Salzberg. Sharon Salzberg is the founder of the Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts and has been an important interpreter of Buddhist thought and practice in the United States for over 40 years. The Buddha said that no true spiritual life is possible without a generous heart. Dana, the practice of cultivating generosity, is the very first of the 10 paramis, or qualities of the awakened mind. The path begins here, and the Buddha began his teachings here. Because when we practice generosity, we begin to know a very beautiful quality of joy, a sheer, unhindered delight flowing freely. Giving brings happiness at every stage of its expression. We experience joy in forming the intention to be generous. We experience joy in the actual act of giving something. And we experience joy in remembering the fact that we have given. Some years ago, a meditation master from the forest tradition in Thailand came to the United States for a visit and was escorted around to a few of the meditation centers that had sprung up around the country. He was eager to observe the teaching methods that were being used, but he came away somewhat bemused by the order in which things were taught. In Asia, he reported, the classical sequence of the teachings and practice is first generosity, then morality, then meditation or insight. But here in the United States, the sequence seems to be meditation first, then morality, and after some time, as a kind of appendix, there is some teaching about generosity. This meditation master wondered out loud, what's going on here? When you think about our society, it's not difficult to understand, really. There are, of course, a number of people, including many Unitarian Universalists, who have found the fullness of the Buddhist path and who take it as their primary guide in the search for truth and meaning. But others have different motivations. Some are enticed by the idea of achieving some transformative state and seek the tools to do so. Some are simply looking to find a moment of peace in a hectic world. Others, hearing of health benefits, seek meditation as a way of reducing stress. All of these are fine reasons to meditate, but they also reflect the individualistic bent of our culture. People tend to be in self-help mode and don't always take the opportunity to consider the broader and even more beneficial possibilities of following a wider spiritual path that involves a connection and a commitment to others. And so meditation teachers here in the U.S. respond to this demand and the individual need by focusing first on the techniques of the various forms of meditation. This is unfortunate, for as we've heard, the Buddha said that no true spiritual life was possible without a generous heart, and the Buddha was not alone. 12th century Jewish philosopher Moses Maimonides wrote about 8 levels of charity, offering them up as a kind of guide to enlightened living. And the prophet Muhammad understood the power of giving when he said, "The best of my people will enter paradise not because of their achievements, but because of the mercy of God and their being satisfied with little for themselves and their extreme generosity toward others." The idea has scientific merit as well. Psychologist James Fowler was the director of both the Center for Research on Faith and Moral Development and the Center for Ethics at Emory University. In his 1981 book, Stages of Faith, he outlined a theory of 6 stages that people go through as their faith matures. His work is based on Piaget's stages of cognitive development and Kohlberg's stages of moral development. His basic theory can be applied not just to those who are involved in traditional faiths, but also to those who follow alternative spiritualities or even secular worldviews. And the 6 stages reflect a growing awareness, openness, expansiveness, and finally, commitment to the wider human community. Individuals who reach the higher stages of faith development move through the desire for self-actualization and self-fulfillment to a point where they are actualizing the spirit of an inclusive and fulfilled human community. Generosity in these high stages would be expressed by sacrificial giving based on others' needs and a compassionate response to the wider community's social justice concerns. So it seems the Buddha was indeed right. Unfortunately, because we are human, most of us get stuck not quite reaching these higher stages of development, be it cognitive, moral, or in the practice of our chosen faith or philosophy. I've shared this story with a few of you recently, but when I was working my way up in the world of publishing, I had the opportunity to hire my own replacement as the director of production in the company for which I worked. And I knew just the guy I wanted. He was young, well, younger than me, smart and detail-oriented, and he had a heart. He had a grasp of what made people tick. He would be much better at the job than I ever was. And he had a lot of great expressions that would just roll off his tongue, like, "We're in good shape for the shape we're in." But the one that always made me chuckle was when we were in a staff meeting or in a conference call with our clients, and people were looking around to see who could explain why we'd been unable to make the impossible happen. And he'd shrug his shoulders and he'd say simply, "Human beings were involved." Fowler and fellow psychologist Erik Erikson, who developed a similar theory of psychosocial development, understood that we human beings are not just ego and id, but are a complex social creatures whose development is impacted sometimes for better and sometimes for worse by our relationships with family and friends and the wider world. We get stuck somewhere along the way sometimes, and we work hard, some of us, at getting ourselves unstuck, often through self-help programs, when the key to health and happiness might, in fact, actually be in giving to others. Again, there's science to back this up. 2 weeks ago, when I talked about the spirit of abundance, I offered 5 very simple things that each of us can do to help create a sense and a spirit of abundance. I said, first, express your gratitude out loud, and everybody here said something that they were grateful for. You do that even if no one is there to hear you, and it makes a difference internally. Second, be cheerful even when you don't necessarily feel it. You'd be surprised how acting cheerful changes you inside. Third, give the gift of your attention. Listen actively to someone. It not only helps them, but it takes you out of your own head. Fourth, offer a compliment. It will lift somebody's spirit, and at the same time, it will lift yours. And fifth, and finally, share your joy. It's been shown that sharing joy heightens our sense of well-being. Well, today I offer up 5 reasons why the practice of generosity is a powerful and a healthy thing. First, giving simply makes you happy. Harvard Business School professor Michael Norton and his colleagues have found that giving money to someone else lifted people's happiness more than spending it on themselves, despite the prediction made by those folks in the study that spending on themselves would make them happier. And in another study, researchers at the National Institutes of Health found that when people contribute to charities, it activates regions of the brain associated with pleasure, social connection, and trust, creating what they call the warm glow effect. Other studies have suggested that altruistic behavior releases endorphins in the brain, producing the positive feeling known as helper's high. Second, giving is a very healthy activity. Stony Brook University professor Stephen Post, in his book, Why Good Things Happen to Good People, reports that giving to others has been shown to increase health benefits in people with chronic illness. And a study out of the University of California in Berkeley found that elderly people who volunteered for 2 or more organizations were 44% less likely to die over a 5-year period than were non-volunteers, even after controlling for their age, exercise habits, general health, and negative health habits such as smoking. Isn't that remarkable? Third, giving generously builds social connections and it promotes cooperation. In her book, The How of Happiness, author Sonia Yumborsky writes that being kind and generous leads you to perceive others more positively and more charitably, which in turn fosters a heightened sense of interdependence and cooperation in your social community. Fourth, giving generates the spirit of gratitude. Whether you're the giver or the beneficiary of a gift, the exchange can elicit feelings of gratitude. Giving can be a way of expressing gratitude or instilling gratitude in the recipient. And like giving, research has shown that gratitude is integral to happiness, health, and the creation of social bonds. Robert Emmons and Michael McCullough are co-directors of the research project on gratitude and thankfulness. They found that teaching college students to count their blessings and cultivate a sense of gratitude actually caused them to exercise more, be more optimistic, and feel better about their lives overall. Fifth, giving is contagious. A study by another James Fowler, not the one we talked about before, but this one from the University of California in San Diego, and Nicholas Christakis of Harvard, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, shows that when one person behaves generously, it inspires observers to behave generously at a later time towards different people. The researchers found that generosity can actually spread by 3 degrees from one person to the next, and the next, and the next. In their paper, they write that each person in a network can influence dozens or even hundreds of people, some of whom he or she does not know or has not met. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "It is one of the most beautiful compensations of this life that no one can sincerely try to help another without helping themselves." This whole idea of paying it forward is real, and it works. So, 5 reasons why the practice of generosity is a powerful and a healthy thing. First, giving simply makes you happy. Second, giving is a very healthy activity. Third, giving generously builds social connections and promotes cooperation. Fourth, giving generates the spirit of gratitude. And fifth, giving is contagious. And the good news is that generosity is a practice that can be cultivated. Again, the Buddha was right 2,500 years ago. All it takes is open eyes to see the need, an open mind to see the possibilities, an open heart graced with humility to be able to let go and give what we can of our time, our energy, and our treasures to others. In the coming months, right on schedule, you will be asked to consider what this congregation means to you and how much you might be willing to contribute to the annual operating budget. To be honest, this always seemed such a strange thing to me. Stalwart members of the congregation pulling their hair and racking their brains to figure out how to get other members of the same congregation to contribute their fair share. Now, my difficulty with this has been admittedly the result of how much I care about this faith, what it provides me in the way of spiritual sustenance, and how much I believe in the impact this movement and its member congregations can have locally and globally to bring positive change. So yes, I am a bit biased. But if you have chosen to join this congregation, and you've read and understood the demand that our 7 principles, as imperfect as they may be, make on each of us to act for change, and you think about our mission statement, which says that we strive to create a larger community of peace, justice, and love, you must see that your annual contribution is not about a line-item budget, as important as that may be. It is about possibility. It is about creating here and now a welcoming, caring, and loving community that generates the spirit of abundance, a community that can then look outwards and find ways to share that abundance of time and talent and treasure with those who need it the most. It's about knowing that none of us can do this work alone, but that as a community we have the power of numbers, the strength of diverse talents and energies, the ability to connect and expand that power and strength through local alliances, and we have the joint mission of making a positive difference in the world. So I ask myself, why this annual struggle? I am well aware and very sensitive to the fact that in addition to diverse talents and energies, we also have diverse abilities to contribute. There are folks who live on a fairly fixed income and give what they can. And we also are sure to talk about the fact that we contribute in many different ways with our time and our talent as well. But it's also true that our congregations have not done the best job of inspiring our imaginations and shining a light on those possibilities so that those who can give more can do so. This is a wonderful place to worship. It's a wonderful place to be active. And it can be a powerful place to make change in this community. My goal today is merely to have you consider the positive benefit to you of both building within yourself the spirit of abundance and of turning that into the spirit of generosity, of your time or your talent or your treasure, which, as we have seen, can be the foundation of a successful search for truth and meaning and the wellspring of a happy life. Margaret Miles, Professor Emeritus of Historical Theology at the Graduate School in Union School in Berkeley, California, and formerly the Bussey Professor of Historical Theology at Harvard Divinity School, has written, "The daily practice of love requires that we acknowledge that we live with our uncertainties and fears rather than cater to them. As human beings with limited knowledge and perspectives, we are always uncertain, even about the most crucial matters. However, fear that we do not possess certain knowledge of the humanly good must not be allowed to prevent our passionate commitment to it." Let me read that again. Fear that we do not possess certain knowledge of the humanly good must not be allowed to prevent our passionate commitment to it. Miles shares these words from feminist philosopher Dorothy Dinnerstein, who wrote, "We never feel as grown up as we expected to feel as children, yet we are the grown-ups. Spirituality should help us transcend the needy world in which we live, a world that requires our attention and our love, and I would add our gifts." In Love Dharma, Buddhist teacher and writer Jerry Larkin states, "The Buddha taught over and over that generosity is the first door we walk through if we are serious about our spiritual work." And the Buddha himself, in his own simple way, offers these final words of wisdom. "If you knew, as I do, the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing some of it." May it be so for all of us. Let's raise our voices together in singing our final hymn, number 128, "For All That Is Our Life." Please rise in body or spirit.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our right, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Please be seated. To build the common good and make our own days glad. These are not two separate objectives, but one statement that is both circular and intertwined. To truly work towards the common good, as long and as hard as the path may sometimes seem, requires a certain delight in the journey, a joy in the effort. And even the smallest step toward building the common good, taken with love and intention, stretches our generosity muscles and rewards us with the joy of knowing we have made the effort and are giving back some of what we have received. It reinforces a practice that is wonderfully beneficial to giver and receiver alike, the practice of generosity. In the words of Theodore Parker, be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love, its profession of faith divine living. Go in peace.